You are listening to Stages Podcast with Mary Lee Fairbanks and Stephanie J. Block. Welcome to Season 6. Here on Stages Podcast, we go behind the scenes and beyond the resume to explore the crossroads of creativity, spirituality, motherhood, and so much more. Please like and subscribe on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, all the places. Give us 5 stars and a great review. It really helps us grow. Thanks for joining Stages Podcast, Season 6.
Good. This is such a pleasure. Mary Lee, I haven't seen you in 1,000 years. How are you?
I'm good. I saw you at that reunion that we had. God, it was pre-COVID. Remember at
I don't remember anything pre-COVID.
No. Was there life before? It's been 1,000 years.
I think I remember going to a theater once, but I don't know. It's all sort of a blur. And
it needs to end.
It needs to end now.
I know.
Where are you, Lynn? Are you in New York or?
I'm in upstate New York.
Oh,
I'm at my
nice.
house, which is where we've had our little haven for 1.5 years, to the point where, you know, we've started to go back to New York and stuff, and sort of get back to life. But I feel like I've been transformed. You know, I was always this chugging little girl, and now I feel like there are horns and there are people, and it's stressful all of a sudden.
Yeah.
I must admit, you look like you're sitting in the lyricist Oval Office right now. I mean, it is.
Oh,
It's true. It's like the White House for creatives. That's where you're sitting.
what's the word with my indomitable desk or whatever it is? I don't know. It's my dining table. My husband and I, through this whole period, I'm literally at the one end of my dining table, and he's always at the other end, and he's working, he builds houses. So he's there with papers and this whole mountain of, plans and stuff. And I'm down here with my computer in my very tidy environment at my end of the table. And he's sort of a self-taught, house builder person who designs them and surveys the land with his feet. And yeah, I mean, it's incredible what he's learned to do. So anyway.
Wow.
Did he build the house you're in?
No, this is an old house. This was built in 1860-ish, something like that.
Oh,
Amazing.
lovely.
Now. Beautiful.
I live in one of the old houses too.
Oh, yeah, I love it. But don't you find that it's falling down on your head every 2 seconds? I mean,
All I do is call the repair guy. I'm like, all right, my windows are falling out. It's just one thing after another. But we also have these murals on our walls in the hallways to up and downstairs that were painted in 1820.
oh my God.
By Rufus Porter. So we're always trying to keep those intact, because the walls start to crack because it's all old horsehair, and it's so much. It's crazy. Your husband would probably go crazy if he loves old houses.
He would go crazy. We love old houses, but it's like having a early parent, that you're like, I'm gonna prop you up.
How are you?
Hi, Stephen.
Okay, are Stephen and I both wearing the same?
How are you?
Yes,
You are. You're wearing the same
both
color.
in green.
Yes. It's like, what are the odds?
You two are psychically tied together.
Tied together at the wardrobe.
We're psychic friends, as Dionne Warwick would have said.
Yeah, right.
Oh my God.
So today we have 2 guests on the show. They are an acclaimed theatrical writing team. They've won 2 Tony Awards, 2 Drama Desk Awards, 2 Olivier Awards, and they've been nominated for 4 Grammy Awards, 2 Academy Awards. They received the Oscar Hammerstein Lifetime Achievement Award, and in 2015 were inducted into the Theater Hall of Fame. This partnership has lasted almost 40 years. I had the incredible good fortune to work with them in Ragtime, a show that I consider to be one of the greatest and most complex shows ever written. We are happy to have them here with us today, so please welcome to our podcast, Stephen Flaherty and Lynn Ahrens. Yay!
Thank you for having us. We're really excited, and we were thrilled to get the invitation from you guys. So we're thrilled.
You two are always so lovely to work with, and You always were so humble and open and kind to everyone. And I wanted to tell this story, Stephen, about you. And I doubt you'll remember it, but it was a really touching moment for me in the New York theater scene, because sometimes, the industry can be really harsh. And then in the sea of that harshness, it's like the two of you are this gentle presence in the industry. And when I went in and I auditioned for Ragtime, it was at, some final callback, and you know how they are. There's, 25 people behind the table and they're all staring at you. And of course you're nervous. And Stephen, you were standing up and leaning against the wall, and I was doing the mother song. And it was the part of the song where, where the women are singing in the background, right? And so it's hard to hear when you come in without that background. And very quietly in the back of the room, you just slowly raised your hand and then you cued me. And I was like, I love him, because I could tell in that moment you wanted me to succeed and you didn't even know who I was. And that moment just stayed with me for years. I thought it was just beautiful.
Wonderful. I probably saw a little bit of fear go like from, across your eyes. And
you probably did.
And here you go. Yeah. I mean, the truth of the matter is everybody wants everybody to do their best in an audition. There's a lot of this misconception of like us and them. And I think all the creators want everybody to be amazing. So I in the past, I've jumped at the piano if the audition pianist is mangling the song, and I know that the actor can do it, but you can't tell, So whatever it takes to make you guys look your best. That's part of the job.
Can you see the looks on our face when we go a little awry? You can absolutely, no matter how we smile through it or continue to perform, you can see a shift in either our face or our body, right?
I think so. Don't you, Lynn? Yeah, totally.
I not only think so, but I know so. I mean, what I always feel when an actor walks into a room to audition, I am always a little, not on edge, but just rooting for them so hard.
That's
and
right.
trying to keep my smile going and trying to flow and welcoming them, because I couldn't do what you guys do for $1 million trillion. It is a miracle that anybody can get up in the middle of an empty room, stand on a spot, and sing their hearts out and act and focus over our heads to some unknown presence that becomes so real. And it's just a miraculous talent that actors have that I am in awe of, since I am entirely lack it, So I just, anyway, we are always rooting for the actor, and hoping to give them good energy.
And you can tell. You can tell.
You have to be exhausted then by the end of a casting session, because you are invested and you are empathetic and you're feeling all of these different energies and emotions, whether they're the high highs or the disappointments come in and out of that room. You've got to be pooped.
It's true, I think, in a weird way. You do expend energy for sure.
You do. You certainly do. And also at recording sessions, you think, you're just sitting in a chair listening to playback. But the truth of the matter is to listen really closely and really focus. That's sort of exhausting. But the truth of the matter is if you find your actor, who's ultimately going to be your collaborator at the end of the day at an audition session, then it energizes you, because you're so looking forward to working with this person. You're looking forward to the future.
Now, Stephen, I saw your face when Mary Lee said 40 years together.
I know, right?
What does that mean to you? How do you, I guess you could speak to this. I know the word marriage is used often when it's a lyricist and a composer, or when you've been collaborating and agree to walk together in this life for that long. How do you two inspire each other? How do you guys communicate that allows and affords for 40 years working together?
That's a multi-part question. I mean, for me, I just feel so grateful that Lynn and I met one another when we did. I came to New York in the fall of '82, and by the spring of '83, we were writing together, which is something of a miracle, And it's that big question of, is it like luck? Is it dumb luck? Is it being in the right time at the right place? Is it destiny? I don't know. Maybe it's a combination of all of those things, but I feel grateful. And I also think that as you go together in a partnership, you know, be it a marriage or a creative partnership, you're always developing as individuals as well as the team. So I think that that's really good, just to be sensitive to that aspect, you know, because, you know, Lynn's maybe wanting to do a certain kind of show and I'm scared of it, which has happened in the past. And it could take me a while to warm up to that. But just the idea of there's more where that came from, because being Irish Catholic, I'm always expecting like the horrible drunk relation to walk into the room and take away the happiness
shoe
away.
gonna drop?
Yes, that's right. And there's something about just the idea that you can find that there's more where that comes from, and that you can continue, and that you know, you can grow and develop and have adventures and all of that. You know, it's so surprising and wonderful, and I just feel grateful. I don't take a single day for granted. I don't.
Yeah, like he said, I have nothing to add. He's absolutely right. I really don't. I mean, we're very lucky to, I think, have found one another, and also I think that you know, when you find the right collaborator or husband or wife or, you know, partner, you kind of know it, you know, and you want to nurture that relationship. And if you're lucky, they do too. And, you know, sort of allow one another to change and to try new things. And, you know, there have been points in our working, we have fights. I mean, we're sort of like a whole partnership. We have fights, we get mad at one another, we annoy the hell out of one another. And then, you know, other times, I mean, like after this pandemic, when I first got together with Stephen, it was so thrilling because I had
likewise
thrilling, you know, we hadn't seen each other for over a year, where normally we're in the room together pretty much at least 3 times a week, maybe 4 times a week, you know, all the time working. And suddenly it was kind of all long distancey and weird, and, you know, it was stressful and all of the things that we all went through. And, you know, just to feel like the normalcy of that relationship was coming back again was thrilling. It really was. And it's not just the work, it's just a friend, you know, that you can share a lot with. And we've had adventures, we've had travels, we've gotten lost together, we've, you know, had many, you know, we've been through bankruptcies and all sorts of adventures in show business together, you know. So that's quite a background for.
And you're each other's rocks.
Yes, and we
you know,
time.
and it's interesting, when we met one another, and this is like way back in the day, almost 40 years ago, when we did that, we wrote in completely different ways. You know, I was like right out of the conservatory, and I thought, you know, I'm going to feel profound thoughts and I'm going to be a serious writer, and I only wore black and I had a beard, you know, and I would just sequester myself like a monk, you know, in a room, and I would just write down the scores, and it would be like, you know, I was doing, you know, copying Bibles or something. Whereas Lynn was much more of an improv kind of gal, and she would just be on her feet all the time in the room saying, oh, let's try this, let's try that, and throwing ideas around. And it was very, at first threatening to me. She denies this, but I remember our first session together, she said, okay, make something up. And I realized later that I had never made something up in front of another human being. I would only like hide away and make something up on my own in case, frankly, if it was terrible, you know, I would be the only one to know that, and I would hide it. And, you know, and in those early days, I would have, I don't want to say writer's block. I don't, knock wood, I don't believe I've ever had that, but it would be hard for me to get beyond like measure 16, because I would know if I made this choice, the piece would go to the left and become one thing. And if I made a different choice, it would go to the right and become a completely other thing, and I would freeze rather than make a choice. And Lynn taught me, like, just make a choice, and if it's not the right choice, you're going to find out soon enough. And then you circle back, and then, you know, you try the other way. And, you know, in our own writing, we often write many drafts of songs. You know, that most of the time they just don't appear. You know, we'll do a draft, and then you find something out about it, and then bit by bit it reveals itself. But you know, a lot of the artistry of writing for the theater is the rewriting, you know, of the work. So, yeah.
So if you're both yin and yang, in 1982, were you paired together in like a workshop of some kind, or you actually chose one another and said, you and me, we go together because we're so different. Let's like, how did that relationship even begin?
Lynn should tell this story.
Okay. Oh, okay.
I'll tell this story. This is one of those stories you just keep telling because
It's a weird story.
It's a wonderful story. We were both in this BMI musical theater workshop, and I was in there as up until that point. I'll just backtrack very quickly. My background was in jingles, commercial music, children's television, those kinds of things. And I had made a Schoolhouse Rock. I did all this stuff before I even thought about musical theater. So I'd had a number of careers, and they were all based on me composing with, some banging on the piano by ear, playing on the guitar, 5 chords, and I would sing melodies over my plunk, plunk, plunk music. And I'm a good melodist and I have a good ear. So I somehow managed to make a career as a total dilettante, in all these different fields. I just didn't know what I was doing, but I was a composer. And so I joined the BMI musical theater workshop, and they pair you up there, and they say, for the first assignment, you two will work together, and the second assignment, you two will work together in trying to develop teams and trying to develop collaborations. But I never got paired with Stephen ever in that first year because he was writing his own lyrics, and a self-contained, black-bearded young man who never looked anybody in the eye. He was so shy, and he'd sit in a corner, and when it was his time to present a song, he'd go up and he'd play and he'd sing a song, and the lyrics were beautiful, and I would sit there going, he is so talented, but I never even said hello. He would just like zip out of the room at the end, like he'd just disappear. So I was working with other people, very talented, and at the very, very end of that first year, I was standing out in front of the building. Weirdly, I have ended up living in New York in the building that is next to where the old BMI musical theater workshop was. I can see it from my windows. It's really weird. And I'm standing out in front, and Stephen Flaherty, we're chatting with some people. Stephen Flaherty went scurrying up the street, scurrying toward 8th Avenue, and he stopped maybe 150 or 200 feet away, and he turned around and he went, "Hey, Lynn, do you want to do the last assignment?" And it was the last of the year. Do you want to write a song? And I was so stunned that he could talk. I was like, well, okay, sure. And so we sort of made a date on the sidewalk, then he scurried away, and we got together, and I had written a lyric for the last assignment, which was pretty bad.
No, you have to say what the assignment was, because this was sort of interesting.
Well, the assignment was 2 people singing together in different places, right? So it's a traditional, kind of a song where 2 people are singing the same song, but they can't see each other. And in SEUSSICAL, it's kind of like when Horton and JoJo are singing Alone in the Universe. That's
right.
a classic example of that kind of song. So I wrote a lyric about, and this is how long ago this was, 2 people placing personal ads in the Village Voice. Okay.
That's right.
This collaboration this was before anything, before Hinge, and before
before anyone was swiping left. Yeah.
No.
That's right.
Left, you had a cold and you were doing that. That's what that meant. So I handed him this lyric, and he put it very calmly on the piano, and he sat down and he put his fingers down, and he just sort of did this little musical thing looking at the lyrics, and I thought, there it is. This is it. I just knew it. I said, this is what I've been looking for, because he was a lyricist and I was a semi-composer, and we both had something to offer one another. So I offered him, I think, the spontaneity of a work process where we can make mistakes and we can bang on the keys, and my whole sort of background, sort of the overall what we're aiming for. And Stephen is so detailed and so specific about every note and every chord from his background in composition. So I think that's how we got together, and why I think we fuel one another's creative process, because I can hear things and say, I don't know what that note is, but it's just not right, or it should go up, and I don't know, and he can point at a lyric and say, not your best work right there, because he knows.
That personal ad really worked for the both of you.
I know. And the weird thing is, Lynn found the original manuscript, which was ink on, lined music paper. She found it recently, and there was some quotes in it that were like oddly prescient,
Yeah.
about somebody trying to find the other person, and are you out there? And it was strange. I mean, the song itself is not great.
Not good.
Let's just put that out there. But the process of writing the song was great.
It did its job.
And-
It brought you two together.
That's
yeah,
right.
yeah. And we said, oh, let's do another one. Oh, let's do, and then you write a song, you write another song, and then eventually you write a show, and then you write, and just the idea that you could continue. And I think at that period of time, I was trying to put everything that I knew about music and life into every measure. And that, that's just too much,
Right, right.
And I realized, oh, this won't really fit well with this particular show. And Lynn would say, oh, well, we'll do a project down the road about that, where you can
Yeah.
show that aspect of who you are musically. And just the idea that there would be a future, this is like, shows you like my dark Irish Catholic roots, just the idea that there could be a healthy continuity of things, that was like, wow, okay, sign me up for that.
But what made you stop and turn around and ask her? What possessed you on that particular day, such a shy person who was probably heading back to his room to write privately? Why
right.
did you do it? What took over you?
I think that I admired what Lynn was doing for a very long time, and she could do a complex emotion and she could distill it into 5 words, where it would take me probably 23.
I'm
words.
like you, Stephen.
You know what I
like
mean?
you.
And it would be, and if truth be told, I thought music came to me very easily. It always has. I've been playing piano and creating things since I was like a kid, since I was 7. But words, I loved playing with them, but I was beginning to, I feel like I was in some sort of a rut. And, if you're 21, 22, feeling you're in a rut, you're just starting out. And I just thought, maybe I should try to collaborate, because I really hadn't before. I came from the Midwest, and there was nobody else that was interested in this. So in a weird way, I would do book music and lyrics by default, because, there weren't other people that were interested in that. And I thought, you're in this new city, you should shake it up. I thought Lynn's work was really exciting, very different from mine, but I thought it could potentially be complementary. And it's the old thing where you're waiting till like the absolute last moment to ask somebody to a dance or a date or whatever. And it was literally, and I realized that I had like passed her, and I was going up the street to the end of the block. And it's a thing where the hairs on the back of your neck go like this, and that little voice whispers in your ear, like, turn around.
Yeah, do it now.
You either do or you don't. And if you don't, a potential amazing thing could pass you by.
And you always wonder. I mean, I have those moments where I ignored that, and I was like, I wonder what would have been if I had not ignored that, if I had the courage to listen to the little whisper, and just do it.
And and we're all afraid to varying degrees of most things, and I just thought, turn around, schmuck, raise your voice, and I did, and here we are.
And then something great happened, and then the Irish Catholic in you was going, oh God, I'm going to be smited for something along the way.
Yes, that's right. That's right. You can't enjoy yourself too much,
Don't be too happy.
That's right.
I have a left field question, and it's coming from the mother in me. Stephen, I was going to ask if you were an only child, but you're Irish Catholic, so there's no way you're an only child. So you have siblings. Lynn, do you have siblings as well?
I do. I was the only child for 7 years. So I have 2 brothers. My next youngest brother is 7 years younger than I am. And then my youngest brother is a year younger than him. So, there's a little bit of distance between me and the guys. And I think I had the benefit of the dotage, that a mother gives to an only child before, all the chaos of young boys set in.
Right.
So, in that sense, I was very coddled and, sung to and, given dance lessons and, all of that sort of thing. When I was little, I really did have that kind of loving, very focused rearing, I think. But, I just wanted to add one thing to what Stephen was saying about, when we did get together, what I think is so interesting is that he was writing musicals from the time he was a little kid. I mean, he loved theater from day one and always knew that was what he was going to do. And I didn't know it until I was about, I don't know, 34, 35 or something. Before that, I rarely went to the theater. We did go. I went once I met my husband, we started to go, but I never went in school. I think I saw one Broadway show, Fiddler on the Roof, when I was in college, but that was the first and only show I had ever seen. So in our collaboration, what I think is I still really think this is interesting to me anyway, is that I learned how to write theater with Stephen Flaherty because of what I didn't know what I was doing. And I would say, what if we did this? And he'd go, no, I think, I mean, maybe that kind of a song should, and he really knew the form. And I'm a fast learn, but I didn't know a thing when we first met. I really, really didn't know what I was doing. So, I do, I do credit, now I think I know what I'm doing, but I think I credit a lot of that to those early days with Stephen. And before that, my mother, because she taught me to love books and tell stories and, love singing and dancing and, all of those.
Was she a writer? Your mother?
She's still a writer. She's 95 and she's still a writer. Yeah.
Amazing.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, she's an unbelievable woman. She really is. And not well, she's been published, but she's written for her whole life and a big, huge reader and, a very interesting, great woman.
It's really sad because kids aren't growing up reading anymore. Everything's so fast paced and they're always on computers and games that they don't find the comfort in books that I think we all found in our generation. And books taught me to dream. They taught me there's more world out there I didn't even know existed. And kids they're just not into it. It's kind of sad.
It's so sad. It's so sad. I mean, oh my gosh, books are like my most treasured possessions, really. And I'm only sad that I don't have any bookshelves. And but I've discovered Audible. So now I always have a book in my ear, but
I'm a big Audible gal.
Yeah.
Audible gals. Yeah, that's it.
So Stephen, did you have siblings? Did you grow up with a house full of kids?
Yeah, it's interesting. My parents, they came later to having a family than like most of their relatives, because for whatever reason they were having trouble, conceiving. So the story goes that they pretty much resigned themselves to that and accepted that. And then instantly my mother got pregnant with my older brother. And then like a year and a month later, what they call Irish twins, I was there was me. And so I was number 2. And then she paused a year. And then my younger brother came. And then my sister a year later. So within 5 years, there were 4 of us, So, we had to move to a larger house. And I was lucky because this past week I had not seen my mother and I had not seen my family since pre-COVID. And I was able to go and hang out with them for a week in that house that we moved to in the 60s that, where I was 4, and the fact that we were able to be there as a family in that house after this crazy year, it was beautiful. And I should point out that my younger brother actually is so musical. He plays 9 instruments.
Oh, wow.
And he just does that for fun. That's his idea of fun, because he's a research chemist and he studied the brass instruments. So he played tuba and trumpet and trombone. And then he just taught himself like the banjo, the electric bass, the upright bass, all these other instruments. And he actually knows more about music than I do. So whenever I was working on Ragtime and I was feeling very vulnerable about the Lower East Side people, because everything I was coming up with sounded like, they had done it before in Fiddler and done it better. And I said, I'm doing really well with the Harlem folk. I'm doing fine with the New Rochelle folk, with the other people in the show, but I'm having trouble with this group of people. And he made a listening list for me, of all his favorite klezmer and Eastern European music, and the fact that he would even just know that, as just personal interests, is amazing. So he's sort of like that. Like I love research. I love listening to different kinds of music, but he is like the deep dive guy.
Wow, what a resource to have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
When you look at your musical theater canon, are there characters that you that resonate with you more than others, or have you ever written a part that sort of emulates either Lynn or Stephen?
In a way, I think every character is us a little bit, but it's only recently, I think, I'm speaking for myself, but it's only recently that I've really begun to think, oh, I could really write something for this character that would be something that Lynn Ahrens wants to say. Because I'm usually so immersed in the actual character and in their life and in who they are and what their world is and what their story is that we're trying to tell. And usually by the end of it, there's something important, hopefully, in the show that I've been able to put forth into the world. But it's only recently that I've been thinking about specific characters and how they might reflect me. And I've never really, I'm always hiding in the back darkness somewhere, trying to put wonderful stories on stage that actually move an audience and make them feel something. But I'm trying to think specifically. I mean, I think there's probably a whole lot of me in Mother in Ragtime, because I've been through that arc of, being a very, traditional girl, just sort of brought up in a good girl and nice person. I've sort of identified with Wendy Wasserstein, who was always complaining how nice she was. And, and I think as time has gone by, I've stepped over into the alto phase of my life. I'm not such
So you're more of is it Rita from Lucky Stiff? Is that
very more? I have a lot of Rita in me.
I love her. She's one of my favorites of all
too.
your characters.
I love Rita. And I actually liked, I kind of love the character of Countess Milevsky-Malevich in Anastasia. And in fact, she's named after the woman we bought our house from. So the house I'm sitting in right now was owned by an old lady who was married to a white Russian whose name was Count Milevsky-Malevich. And I took her name and put it in the show because I just love that character.
That's fantastic.
That is fantastic. Stephen, any connections to a particular character?
Yeah. Well, I think Lynn said it really, really well, that to write any character and to give them voice, and especially to give them musical voice, which is sort of the sound of what their emotions are, what they're feeling. I think you have to relate to the character, or you have to find things in your own life that are absolutely applicable. And even writing Once on This Island, and obviously I'm not Timoon, I'm just not. But at the same time, as that developing writing was happening, I was a caregiver for a friend, a dear friend of mine, who was going through a health crisis, and this was during, obviously the AIDS epidemic, and to be loving somebody and trying to keep the god of death at bay, and trying to overcome that through faith or belief or whatever you want to call it. All of a sudden, those scenes with Papa Gay jumping through a window, which I thought, ooh, how do I write that? Because I was naive and had not experienced that. All of a sudden, it's like life gave that to me on a platter, big time. And, it was difficult, but it was the most, it was a very good time and a very difficult time, and a way that I was able to learn a lot about myself and then take what I had learned and put it into a useful form, which was the score.
Yeah, a channel for all that pain and sadness too.
Channel, and I felt grateful that I had that, because a lot of people don't. They're just sitting with, the unknown and the difficult. And so, even though my background is not Timoon's, my emotional life, especially at that time, was. And another character that I dearly love is Alfie Byrne in Man of No Importance.
Man of No Importance. I was going to say, with the Irish background, there's got to be some characters in there.
Yeah, and there was a scene that's at the top of Act 2 that was, it's a small scene, but it was maybe one of my favorite scenes to write. And it was about Alfie Byrne in confession. And, you know, and here and writing this show was Terrence McNally, another Irishman, and myself. And Lynn said, you know, I'm the lone Jew here. I don't understand what this confession is. And I said, well, there are so many emotions, at least for me, that you feel during confession. And there, you know, there's shame, there's hiding, there's fear, there's anger, you know, there's humor. And it took us a couple of drafts to do it. And, you know, luckily we were working with Joe Mantello, also a Catholic, so he knew he knew all these like conflicting emotions that happen in a confessional booth, and I just wanted to really try to nail that as best I could, because I'd been living with it so long, and so that was a favorite scene and a favorite character to write for.
I feel like
I went to high school in Neptune, New Jersey, and it was a very big Catholic school, and all the boys I dated, you know, had names like Fabio Battaglia. And,
Yes.
you know, Jimmy Frocchia and stuff.
Those
like
are
that.
my kind of people, Lynn,
That's
right there. All right.
I was very comfortable with all these Catholic boys on A Man of No Importance, but I really did have to find out what happened in that confessional because I didn't know. And you know, what I wanted to say was, I think, you know, as a writer of musical theater, you have to be so empathetic, because you really have to become the characters. You have to go inside their psyches and figure out who they are and how you can express them. And we have all of these ancient cassette tapes stored up that we have acted out characters on them, you know, and walked around the living room, and, you know, and I'll be reading Sarah and Cole House and this one and doing all the voices. It's so embarrassing when I think about it. And they will be released when we die. Not before. Like,
Come on, can we have one small snippet to play on the show? Come on, Lynn, just a little piece.
I keep going back to Joe Mantello, and I can hear him like, "Bless me, Father, I have sinned. It's been 65 years since my last confession." well, he's not quite 65, but you know, that man's not been in a confessional for a long time.
that was kind of, my dad was like the North End guy, you know, and he used to say, I don't go to confession because I ain't getting out of there if I go in. Then they'll let me out.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
So let's go back to Terrence McNally a little. You just were talking about him. Talk about your relationship with him.
Oh, I miss him every day.
I'm sure you do.
Miss him every day, and I can't believe I'm even saying that, because, you know, I don't miss my father every day, but I miss Terrence every day, because he was just such an amazing and special presence. But he and I fought like cats and dogs.
It did.
We really did. And people were always interceding because they thought the project would collapse because we were having fight, you know, like, no, Terrence, I'm not, you know, and I would have to always be saying, you know, can you please not use this word in the introduction to the song, because I'm using it in the song lyric, and I wrote the lyric first. And, you know, it was sort of like, you have to, we'd have big fights because we were both, and I still am, you know, such perfectionists. But I think under that, what a writer he was. I mean, he could just write a monologue for a character, and I would look at it and go, well, there's the song, you know, and I would steal all of his work to put in song lyrics because it was so lyrical to begin with and so poetic. And he was unbelievably generous about that and loved it. He loved hearing what we would do with his stuff, you know, and it was a very exciting collaboration. We did 3 shows with him. And then I don't know if it was exactly the last thing that he ever wrote, but very much toward the end, we did a concert version of Ragtime, and he rewrote certain things, and we rejiggered certain things so that it could literally be done at microphones, you know, with beautiful segues of narrative in between the scenes, you know, to hold it together. And it was certainly our last collaboration. I think he might have probably was working on a play, because he always was. But you know, I miss him every day. And the very sad thing, I guess, that I still think about was we were down in Florida, in Sarasota, doing a show at the Oslo Rep when the pandemic hit. And Terrence was scheduled to come down there. He and his husband have a condo in Sarasota. So we were going to get together, and he was going to come to opening, and I very much wanted him to see a preview and give notes and, you know, all of that stuff. And when we were basically shut down, we all left Florida, and I emailed him. I still have the email, and I said, Terrence, don't come down, don't travel, please don't come down. We're not there. You shouldn't be, don't do it. And but their plans were in place and they came down and he died the following week.
Oh.
That, well, we went like that, basically. And I'm still so sad about that because I never got to see him at the
Yeah.
very end. We were expecting to and hoping, and we thought that that's what would happen and it didn't. So yeah, that was very sad. So we miss him a lot, pretty much every day. I do think about him when I'm writing because I'm trying to write with music. It's hard for me because usually I'm setting music and I can't hear any other music except Stephen's music. But right now I'm not even going to tell Stephen Flaherty what I'm working on at the moment. But
I'm thinking, wait a second, this is news. This is like, I've not heard this.
I'm not telling you just yet, but I'm working on a little something to show you. But I'm trying to put music in my ears, just because Terrence did that. And
she's got to keep you excited. There have to be secrets after 40 years.
No,
this is how you keep the marriage alive.
I remember that Terrence himself said that he felt too much on music in his plays, because like when you think of Master Class and, Lisbon Traviata and, they had, big sections of music. And I remember him saying for Perfect Ganesh, which is his play of two middle-aged women on a pilgrimage to India. He said in scene 1, he had them both forget to bring their Walkman so they would have no music. And he said that was his way of preventing himself from in a later scene using music, which at that point he felt like it was being a crutch. And I think that's so interesting whenever you begin writing to give yourself limitations, because I firmly believe, as Stravinsky said, that creativity only comes by limitation. If you can say, you can do, if you have everything available at every given moment, then it's hard to focus in and focus down. So, but
Yeah,
Terrence,
there's too many choices.
That's right. But Terrence was so supportive of us, not only as writers, but as people. And he would always ask, how are you doing, as opposed to how is the show that you're working on doing, and
that's great.
It meant the world, because it's, the shows are great and the process is fantastic. And the people that we meet, it's just incredible, but it's not the full picture of what your life is, and I think that he was always aware of that, in his own life and in seeing other people. And he was always about the context of things,
That speaks to me right through my gut, because I visited New York City last week for the first time since March 2nd of 2020. And it's so typical when you're walking down 8th or 9th and you run into a pal you haven't seen in a while. And the first thing out of their mouth, it's so good to see you. What are you working on? Well, now with the great pause, we all know that really we've only been working on life and staying healthy. And that's right. So that first question that when I ran into anybody was, how are you? How's the family? And it really just drenched over me going, this is a new start. We have a real opportunity here for a renewal and a reset without all of this other noise in the background of where were you? What have you been doing? It's a nice starting ground for all of us. And I'm interested to see how we invite each other back when it's safe to gather,
That's a beautiful thought and so true. Absolutely true. I love that. Yeah. So
we'll see.
I know.
I used to have people fairly recently asking me, so what are you working on? It's always, and you barely opened a show, or you're in the process of birthing a show. And it's like, so what are you working on? And I realized what I was working on was trying to find a larger frame. It wasn't about this project or that. It was about like taking a couple steps back and looking at the whole picture of, what we're doing and, why we're writing and what it means to us. And it's never about any one project, because things rise and fall and, and then they go away and then you're into the next thing. And, but it's about trying to find that larger frame, the context that, that's what your life is, it's the larger frame.
It's really interesting because my husband and I often talk about this over the last couple of years, more so than before. Our son's a teenager. He's going to be off doing his thing. And my husband's always saying, would you be happy if we just got a little lake house and reduced our life down and made it smaller, would we be satisfied if every day was smaller and quieter and less stuff, less noise? And I always say to him, temporarily, I think I'd be great at it, but I do think I'd start to get antsy, because you have to find a way to keep creativity flowing in your life, in the little ways and the big ways. And I don't know, I think going in and out and finding that balance of the big picture and the small picture is sort of the goal. At least that's the goal that we're trying to put in our sights and hold on to, and find that balance, the quiet and the creative and all of that stuff coming together.
Agree.
I hear that in your music, both of you. I hear the grand and the small. And I think that larger scope is apparent in all of your scores. I really do.
Oh.
And that's what allows us to, going back to reading books, right? The beauty of using your imagination when sometimes those pictures are almost too big that you have trouble holding on to what that might look like, but your brain gets to create how big or small that world looks to you in the narrative. But then when there are those details that drop in, they're like true anchors that allow you to live not in the dream space, but in the reality of what you create. So I hear it in every one of your scores. I will tell
That's so
you,
beautiful.
if I'm in a place, and whether that be a place of angst or sadness or great contentment, I go to you. I go to you. Honestly. Once on this island,
Oh yeah.
I don't care where you are or who you are, you will move. There will be a beat going on that doesn't allow you to just sit, right? And then these sweeping anthems of ragtime will lift you or transport you to a different place. You can speak to every single one of your scores like that.
Yeah,
And
it's true.
I don't understand the formula. It's like it's a magic trick to me. It really is.
It's not a magic trick,
Thank you.
but it's something within what you just said, which is it is the specifics of life, the specifics of what somebody's wearing and what somebody, does mother have a whalebone corset on that constricts her? Or, does Alfie Byrne in Streets of Dublin, there are references to specific people who lived in Dublin in 1964 and worked there, and I use their names. And I feel like it is the specifics of life that inevitably are universal, because we all have different specifics. But if you start with, you wear a totally different kind of clothing, a different religion, different place, different everything. But if you can be specific about those things, we're all human underneath those various specifics. And I'm very interested in that, in the, like the little details that bring reality to characters, but also that somehow let the characters be more united as human beings. I don't know how it works. Maybe it is magic. I don't know.
It's I'm telling you, it's magic.
The thing that everybody assumes is being a composer, that you're in the driver's seat all the time, that you know where you're going. It's going to be 2 left turns and a right, and then you circle around. And the truth of the matter is you don't. If you can really be in the moment with the character and you're riding that wave, then all of a sudden there will be a surprise left turn that you couldn't yourself see coming. You're like, wow, that's and I really think if I surprise myself whenever I'm trying to pull the music out, then chances are that you surprise the listener, you surprise
that you're on the right track. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I remember working on Goodbye My Love, and the part and What of the People, which is this totally different idea, and all of this other kind of music poured out of the middle of this song, and I couldn't see it coming.
But what's interesting is even in that example, you can feel her constriction in that whalebone corset, just through what you guys were writing in that moment. It's really, it is beautiful. It's genius. It's brilliant.
Do you find more of those surprises when you're on your feet acting the stuff out, or does it reveal itself to you at the piano?
It's both.
That's such a great. That's a great question. I find that it depends on what the kind of score is. I know that for Once on This Island, whenever I would be at the piano, somehow it would come out as more European or more composed. And it was really about movement and rhythm and the body. And I just realized somewhat early on that I should not be writing that score at the piano. you know, so I would literally just get out and I'd be walking down the streets and I'd be trying to feel the rhythm and trying to feel the beat in, you know, in my body and you know, in walking. And, you know, I found a lot of the melodies and the grooves away from that piano, you know, and the piano sometimes can be your nemesis, because if you're sitting in front of a piano, that means like, I am here to write. And the piano can just go like this and fold its arms and, you know, give you attitude.
Dare ya. Yeah.
I dare you. Yeah. And you have to find these ways to sort of fool that, like you got to come into the side door, you know, because those are meant to be written at the piano and I feel them at the piano, but sometimes it's great to get away from that piano and great to get away from what you know and what you feel, because, you know, there are certain notes that fit well under my fingers and, you know, chances are they're notes that I've used before.
The
So,
habits. Yeah.
the habits, what you're used to.
I was just going to add that, you know, there are many times when we're writing a song and, you know, sometimes the music comes first and sometimes the lyrics come first. And, you know, I personally always like to get a little bit of music first because I feel that it's, you know, it just helps me. And, but we'll be sitting there and almost improvising back and forth. And suddenly we both start to cry because something has surprised us. It's, you know, and it's like, you don't expect it. You bring, and this, and this, and this, and, you know, and you go, what the heck? And it's wonderful when that happens, you know, it's quite wonderful. And that's when you know that if it touches you and you're surprised by it, everybody will be, you know.
Well, I can't tell you how many times throughout my lifetime I've been in a room alone crying because of where your music took me. So many times when I was a kid and when I was younger, before I found the courage to get to New York, I'd be in my room playing Once on This Island, just crying and feeling every character because they were so clear and beautiful and every one of them had a journey and I just related to them so much. But I wanted to tell you too, we went to Africa this summer.
Whoa.
Yeah, I go every couple of years and I like to bring people because we're sort of kind of ambassadors to Rwanda in a way. We go back and forth a lot.
They are ambassadors to Rwanda.
Wow.
So, well, if you want to go, let me know. I'm taking Jason next summer. Jason
That sounds
Gross coming
amazing.
next summer. So, yeah. So I took Stephanie this summer and LaChance. So we had a big group of about 20 people and we
That's
were
so
in
great.
different vans on our safaris and we would send videos back and forth. And these guys were making up songs. And so LaChance and I and our van put on Once on This Island and we started doing Once on This Island in our van. Then we'd send it to them. So you guys were in Rwanda with us this summer.
Wow. I
Singing.
love that. I love that.
Told me years ago, and I cling to this because it was so shocking to me at the time, but I thought it was so delightful. When she was learning the role and we were in rehearsals, she said, you know, Lynn, she said, I don't really have to do much. I just listen to your demos, the way you sang them. And then there it is. And I do that. And I'm like, what? I'll never forget that. What? What a wonderful trip. Oh my God. That's
Wow.
It was life-altering.
Spectacular.
You're more than welcome. You're more than welcome. I love bringing people there.
It sounds good. Sounds good to me.
Yeah, bring the spouses. We will plan it. I'll start planning.
So when I knock on your door, you're going to say, oh.
No, I won't. I'll be like,
okay.
pack your bag and get your ass on the plane.
Excellent. Sounds good.
I just wanted to say one other quick thing, just while
Yes.
we're talking about songs, if you don't mind, but there is one song that we wrote that somehow I feel like it's a theme song for me. And Stephanie, you know it because you sang it for us at 54 Below so beautifully, called Something Beautiful.
Oh.
And you know, it was, for anybody who doesn't know, it was kind of inspired by a photograph that my father took of a willow tree in Central Park many, many years ago, in the 40s probably. And you know, I just will put this back in the laps of the actors, because we write songs, we think they're beautiful. Sometimes they surprise and move us. But when an actor gets that song into their body and into their mouth and does their thing to it, it's so extraordinary and surprising. And that particular song, you know, we did, I don't know, Stephen, was it 6 shows, 8 shows? I don't know, it seemed endless at 54
It
Below.
seemed like 80. It seemed like 80.
I know we had 18 or 19 different singers and we were juggling material and singers, and it was just such an epic thing to do. But that song was sung by several different actors, and every one of them did such an unbelievably magnificent job. But I'll mention yours, Steffi, because it was so powerful. They were each different, but it was so surprising to me that you kind of became that tree and you grew and your arms extended. It was magnificent. I was put here to make something beautiful before I go. And I just, of everything we've ever written, that may be the most personal song to me in a way. And the way you embodied it was stunning. So I just am flipping this all back to you. You're interviewing writers, but you know, you are what makes it happen for us. We can't sing, we can't dance. I don't like to be on a stage. You know, I'm shy, he's shy. You guys put the work out there and make it what it is. So
My
I
gosh,
say
thank
that.
you.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
very
I-
sweet.
I was really lucky with the song because Stephanie and I got to record it in the studio before for your CD, This Place I Know. So
Yes,
the fact that we were able to just be, I think it was just us
that's it.
and a cellist I think
that's
we
it.
had. And it was like very bare bones, and it was exciting because we got to have that great opportunity and then do it, you know, a couple of years later and sort of have that. It was wonderful. And
We
just
thank
seeing what
you.
you brought to it, you know, and just for the record, folks, that song is like one note short of two full octaves, and then it uses the extreme top and it uses the extreme bottom because it's about the tree reaching up and it's about the roots going deep, and
Yeah.
you can't do that in 5 notes. So like very few can master that. So bravo.
Thank
Mm.
you. You
I
have shaped both of us. Mary Lee and I have both been shaped by you. Lynn, first one. If you were to speak to your 20-year-old self, what would you say to her?
Never read reviews.
I love it.
I would say just keep going, do what you do with joy, put it out there and move on to the next thing that gives you joy, and do not let anybody stop you.
That's perfect. That's
Excellent.
perfect. Stephen, if you could have any ability that you do not possess, what would it be?
The ability to fly.
Oh, good one.
I would like to be a superhero and just sort of hover over Manhattan with my cape. And I often do in my dreams. Then I wake up.
Black cape, black
Yes.
beard, that kind of thing.
That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
Mhm.
Maybe a with show logos. I don't know. Maybe.
Lynn, do you have any good luck charm or like a ritual or superstition that you use or have used in the past?
You know, let's see. Well, I have certain little talismans that I think, you know, sort of are inspiring and bring me luck. And one of my favorite ones, believe it or not, is a picture of Michelle Paulk's son when he was still in the crib wearing a cat in the hat.
Oh.
And it's on my bulletin board and has been since the experience that was SEUSSICAL. And it lets me know that out of difficulty comes beauty, because she was pregnant when we were rehearsing that show and gave birth to Jack. And, you know, we got to have this, I just love this picture and it just means a lot to me. So, you know, I think it's something that I think about. I can see it totally in my head anytime. It's right on my bulletin board and on my desk. And I think it just, you know, gives me a little jolt of hopefulness every now and then when I need it.
Love it.
Okay, Stephen, tell us something about yourself that most people don't know.
Okay. I also paint. I'm also a visual artist. And I was lucky that I got both of those things from my father. He has an amazing set of ears, and he has an amazing eye. He painted his whole life. He played jazz trumpet. After our family dinners, he'd go up to the attic and play Nobody Knows the Trouble I've Seen, which sort of sent a real mixed message to the family. But he was very gentle. He was very kind. And he would always say, listen to what that clarinet's doing right there in that part, that phrase, or ooh, look at that. That's not blue. That's blue with a green under it. And just all of these teeny details. That's how he was wired. And I think he passed that on to me, you know, and I don't think I'd be seeing the world in the same way if I had somebody else as a dad. So I was lucky.
I love
I'm-
that.
I'm going to level the playing field and ask both of them this
Oh.
question.
Okay.
This is the stumper.
Oh,
If you were a nail polish color, what would it be? And what's the cheeky little name of that nail polish?
Stephen.
I think if I were a nail polish color, it would be this color, this shade of green, which I
Mhm.
see is also a favorite color of Lynn's. And the color would be called, let me think, Streets of Dublin. I think I would call that
Oh,
color.
nice. I was thinking Luck of the Irish.
Luck of the
green,
Irish, yeah.
Mhm.
Oh my goodness. Well, since I don't really wear nail polish, so it's hard, but you know what I would say? Transparent.
There you go.
I think transparent because it's sparkly and it's, you don't feel too dressed up and you don't have to, it just sort of hides a multitude of sins in it. And if I were going to call it something, I would call it Ms. Cellophane because,
Oh.
you can see right through it to the heart of things.
Oh, I love it. I love both of those answers.
Yep.
I cannot thank you, both of you, enough for coming on. You're very, you hold a very special place in my life and in my heart. And I appreciate you taking the hour and talking to us. I really do.
What a wonderful show. I mean,
I
this is
know.
great that you put this together. You're both so good at it. My
Oh,
God.
thank
Oh,
you.
Thank
Really,
you.
Thank you.
really.
Well, you're both extraordinary artists, but extraordinary people too. And I think you see the big picture of things, which I think is the goal for all of us. And it's been just a pleasure spending this chunk of the morning with you both. So thanks for asking.
Thank you.
Thank you
Have a good
both.
chunk of the day. We
Chunk
adore
of the
you
day.
both. Thank you.
Thanks, you guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Love you both. Terrific.
Excellent.
Love you
All
both.
right,
You're
okay.
wonderful.
Thank you.
Bye.
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 Oh my God.
Look at us. We both just went, ah.
I seriously, I think I'm going to cry right now. I mean it when I say like they're very important in my life. There are a couple of musicals that just gave me courage, and they're definitely one of those writing teams that just touched a part of me and gave me the courage to show who I am, which I think is hard for me sometimes. At least it was when I was younger. It was much harder. I'm getting better at it. But they just touched me.
I also think so you had admired them so much before you reached the professional scene. And when you have that deep respect and admiration for creatives, and then they sit in a room with you and say, you recognize my genius. And now I'm saying, I recognize your genius. That's a major, oh, look, oh, Mary Lee. So that's a huge thing. That's a recognition that I think many artists are wanting, not just to be chosen, but to be recognized, and to be recognized that by people they so deeply respect. And that happened for you with Ragtime. And that's no small feat. That's a lifetime memory and validation that will stay with you for forever.
Yeah. Yeah. No, they're wonderful people. And it is true that somehow through all the things that they've done and all that, they have every right to be arrogant, and they are absolutely the opposite of arrogance. They're so generous and so kind and so willing to give credit. And they're everything that art should be. Those two
I
to
agree.
me.
I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
totally agree with you. And, it makes sense when Lynn was speaking about the jingles, because you do have to be very to the point. You either have 15 or 30 seconds to sell this product with language that's going to stick in a consumer's head. So it's all about being concise. And then she mentioned that she had brothers And that house, I could, right? You only have a quick breath to drop in and have your voice be heard, and you better get to the point or else no one's listening to you.
Well, it's
And
really true. When I was a kid, because I had two brothers, right? Two older brothers, I had a stutter because I could never gather my thoughts quickly enough to get my sentence out between my two boisterous brothers running around it. And so I would, and so my mother would make everybody in the house, as soon as I opened my mouth, she'd be like, everybody stop talking. And the whole house would stop talking so that I could form my sentence. And eventually I did get past it, but it was only because my mom was like, you guys have to stop talking as soon as she's trying to express herself, or she's never going to get her words together. Yeah.
What a thing. And what a great mama to recognize that and be like, hold, everybody, hold.
Yeah. I was very grateful for them for actually doing it. You know how hard it is for little boys to just close their mouths for a few minutes while their little bratty sister gets her sentence out. I need to say what I want to say. I mean, please. I must have drove them insane.
We spoke about Terrence McNally, and I loved what they said about him and who he was as a man and an artist, which again, with them, those two go hand in hand. It's almost more important to be the good human and then produce great art. But I also wanted to get in there, which I didn't, to speak to Graciela Danielle, because you worked her on Ragtime.
Yes.
She came into our creative team when we were doing Pirate Queen, when we were moving it from Chicago to Broadway. And again, what a little package of a person, but the way she works with artists, the space that she's able to not
command.
take up.
She commands. She walks into a space, commands that space. And she's teeny tiny, but she's brilliant. And she's not mean or forceful or anything. She walks in and you feel her in that space and you just shut up and listen because she's amazing.
And the Tonys are recognizing her. I want to say this year, but it's so backward. We're going back to 2020. Every time we say, when I watch the Olympics and I see 2020 on all the boards behind, whether it's the pool or the gymnasts, and now we're talking about the Tonys for 2020, I start spiraling. But the committee is recognizing her for the lifetime achievement in the theater. And I am so glad they're taking that into account, because she's masterful and she's had a huge impact on theater.
I wonder if we can get her to come on and chat with us.
Wouldn't that be a great chat?
Let's call her.
I will.
I would love it. She's wonderful.
Perfect.
All right.
See you soon. Bye.
Bye.
Stages podcast is produced by Mary Lee Fairbanks and Stephanie J. Block. You can find us wherever you listen to your podcasts. Join us on social media pages or sign up for the mailing list at stagespodcast.net. That is also where you will find Stages swag. If you enjoyed this podcast, please share and rate and review the show. It really helps us grow. Big thank you to Noah Kaiserman and Garrett Healy for the original music, and Allison Ahrens, who has been with us since day one. See you soon.